Good evening, everyone. I'd like to go ahead and call the November 23rd, 2020 special board meeting to order. Let the record show members present: Jamie Miller, Suzanne McAvoy, Yolanda Lopez Bearden, Kathy McNamara, and myself. Some of us are joining virtually. Excuse my voice, please. I'm not feeling so good myself. With that, Kathy, if you could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Any calls to the public? I'm not hearing any audio right now from anyone.
Yeah, Mark, we have some. Michelle Thomas.
So the way that we'll do this is that how many calls to the public are there?
We got 3.
Okay, so we'll do 5 minutes each for a time limit. Whenever you're ready.
So I've never come to one of these before, ever, but we're new to the Buckeye area, and my daughters, we left Washington in March when we went out of school and moved down here. And when they have no friends, since we've gotten here, we've been in quarantine. So even when the online school began, it was a struggle, but we did okay with it a little bit. But my kids both went from, like, my oldest is in 8th grade here at Liberty. She went from straight A's and B's to D's and F's on this online learning. And my 4th grader in Washington, she struggled with reading and she struggled a little bit with the writing piece. And online, up until I got her back in after the conferences, online wise, she was the same thing. She had gone to D's and F's. Since she's been in Mrs. Murphy's class, 4th grade class, her reading level she has raised her reading level to the 4th grade reading level. And out of all of our work assignments that have come home, she's had 1 C- and the rest were A's and B's. So this going back to online learning is scary. And my oldest being in 8th grade, and my husband travels back and forth to Washington a lot, so I'm home a lot with them by myself. So when I'm going to work, it is incredibly hard. I can get my youngest, Brooklyn, I can get her going, and she loves her teachers, so she's really engaged. But my 8th grader, she's awake when I leave, and she'll answer my calls throughout the day until I get home. But then when the progress reports and the weekly reports are coming out, there's many missing assignments, and there's D's and F's. And it's just frustrating as a parent to see she was struggling with the online doing the out of 7th grade, but now she's going through 8th grade, not learning. I feel like she's not learning at all. She's sleeping more than she's learning. And then if we just pass them through, or we just pass her through and she starts 9th grade when she hasn't really learned the rest of 7th grade or 8th grade, I'm just frightened. So as a parent, I just don't know what to do, especially with the working piece. we've tried everything, taking away the phones. But the problem is when you're in 8th grade and you're 14, I was the same way, I can't stay awake past 9 o'clock. So we're all in bed and we think she's going to sleep, but she's laying there half the night and you hear her and you can't make them physically go to sleep. So it's just frustrating. So I just wanted to make my voice heard.
Thank you. Next.
Is that fine?
Yep. you're fine.
They can hear us?
Don't touch it, yes.
Okay, perfect. I won't touch it. Good evening, President Aguirre and governing board members. I was not planning to be here tonight, but this morning as I got my children ready for school, their smiling faces pushed me to continue to advocate for them and the benefits they are receiving with in-person learning. My 5-year-old is joyful every day, being able to see her teacher, socialize with new friends, and of course, dance to Go Noodle. As for my 3rd grader, who stood in front of you all months ago and gave a speech that she had prepared, well, I proudly say that little girl is now vice president of her 3rd grade class. So here we are, one Thursday data drop away from potentially having to shut our schools down and return to virtual learning. Yet this time around, we have some data to show how the mitigation plan is working. We have new guidelines from the Arizona Department of Health Services, which recommends keeping students in school until all 3 benchmarks are substantial. And as noted in my email over the weekend, we have experts stating schools are the safest place for children to be, and it is not where they are seeing the challenges with the spread of COVID. Our governor, who is not shutting down her schools, has echoed the experts and believes schools should remain open. Yes, we absolutely have an obligation to protect our elderly and our more vulnerable, but it should not come at the expense of our children. We have got to stop treating our schools as a solution to stop the spread of COVID in our community. It is clear our schools are not the problem. They need to remain open. Shutting them down would be a step backward. This virus is not going away, and we need to learn to live safely with it. Sending our kids into the classroom with a solid plan in place is working. Let's not take the opportunity away from our children to learn in person. It is hypocritical of us to say schools must shut down when teachers and students can continue to go to the gym, play at a trampoline park, go to the movies, eat at a restaurant, etc. These non-essential places remain open, with far less restrictions being enforced than mitigation plans in our essential schools. Our teachers are essential, our schools are essential. As your discussion continues tonight, remember back to the time when you hoped for more clarity and direction from experts. We are now equipped with extensive data, and it undeniably points to keeping our children in the building. You voted to use benchmarks following Dr. Schaaf's recommendations, which would keep students in school the longest. It is my belief that we can't make an informed judgment for every person in a community. A parent needs to have the option to have their child educated how they see fit. Trust the mitigation plan. It is working. Leave the decisions to our experts to shut down our schools. I will leave you with what Dr. Redfield from the CDC has said. The infections we have identified in schools, when they have been evaluated, were not acquired in schools. They were actually acquired in the community and in the household. And it would be counterproductive from my point of view and a public health point of view in just containing the epidemic if there was an emotional response to say, let's close the schools. Thank you for your time this evening, and always thank you for your continued service to our community. And briefly, if I have the time, President Aguirre, I would like to read some statements from teachers that I have spoken to over the past couple days regarding this exact discussion this evening. And if I do not have the time, I do have copies. They are anonymous statements. I respected them to leave them anonymous, but I do think they're important to hear.
Yeah, there's a minute 10.
I don't know what he's saying. Okay. From a teacher's point of view, I hope you'll consider keeping schools in the traditional model. I have seen a tremendous change in my class since being back. Students' efforts have changed enormously, as well as their attention and distractions. I am able to better support my class without the hurdle of technology issues faced during virtual learning. I'm able to see where my kids are struggling, especially since there is no parent support like with virtual. My students are receiving more accurate grades as well, and it allows me to pull them for a small group to review concepts they need support with. And another teacher said, in-person learning is the absolute best for learning. The students are making big growth being in the classroom. In our class, we have had no COVID cases and only minor cold symptoms, which is very common for this time of year. Students and teachers alike are struggling with all the changes. We are finally feeling the benefits of consistency. Going back to online will be a step back in the learning progress, especially when there are 0 cases of COVID.
Thank you.
I'm worried about my students. I'm worried about their learning. I'm extremely worried about their mental health, and we are taking numerous steps back from the relationships I have been able to build these last few months. That keeps me up at night. Then you put my personal kids in the question, and I am lost. Teachers are being forced to choose between helping our students and helping our own children. We are worried about students not getting individual attention and meeting students' needs. K-2 does not always have parent support at home to guide them during online instruction. How about parents and staff signing a liability waiver? If we have to go online, do we have time to prepare that is not on our own time? Teacher moral and mental health is diminishing.
Thank
Teachers
you.
are not included in decisions and are often informed by parents of new information.
Thank you. The time is up.
Planning is important. If we are told tonight that tomorrow is our last day, that means we will have to plan and prep over our Thanksgiving break. They would be asking me to give up my time with my family to make virtual happen. And the last thought that I had from teachers is if they are making a decision tonight on a date to return to virtual, I hope they leave it December 3rd. Then maybe at their next meeting on November 30th, they can revisit the benchmarks they are using since new benchmark recommendations have come out. That way, we have time to plan for our students and our own children. Our
Thank
students
you.
need to be in the classroom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Do I have everyone's attention? Okay. So I want to make sure people are actually listening.
Yes, go ahead.
I am here on behalf of my children. I think that what online virtual learning does to them is very harmful, and I have seen it firsthand, and I think that going back to virtual learning is not the right decision. I have 2 children at home. One is 6. Her name's Gretchen. She's in 1st grade. When she began virtual learning, there were many times that I would go into her room area where she was working and she was not engaged. Her teacher would be talking to her. She had no idea how to unmute or mute the computer. She was not learning anything. There were times when she was drawing on her skin with markers when she was supposed to be doing assignments because she told me that was the only thing that made her feel like she had friends there with her. She was completely isolated and alone. And oftentimes when the school day was finished, I would go into her room where she was working and she would be crying, telling me that she is depressed, a 6-year-old depressed. How many 6-year-olds do you know with depression because of what this is doing to her? It is very heartbreaking as a parent to see this. I also have a 4-year-old son named Ralph, and he is in developmentally delayed preschool right now. I can tell you that there is not one single day when he did virtual learning that he learned anything. We've talked to his teachers and they say that they need to be in person. And since he has been going to school, he gets the extra help that he needs with speech therapy. He's learning, he's able to talk and communicate more, and he was not getting that when he was at home with us. I also have a newborn baby at home with me. I run a business from my home, being at home with 3 kids, 2 of them that need extra help during virtual learning. Nursing a baby, running a business, it's nearly impossible. I think that online learning and virtual learning is not the solution to this problem. It is making things so much worse. And I don't think other things are being taken into consideration, all the other things that happen when our kids are at home. I know my husband, as a police officer, has seen the rise in domestic violence, child abuse, suicides. All of that goes with our kids being stuck and isolated in the house. I also used to teach high school. I taught algebra trig to 10th and 11th grade students. And when I was teaching, I was at the lowest performing school district in North Carolina. Many of the students that I had in 10th and 11th grade did not have fundamental math skills. They had to use a calculator to do 2 + 2. And it was because they didn't have the education that they needed in their elementary years. The problems that our kids are experiencing today is going to have long-lasting effects on them. I also want to read on behalf of Emily Snyder a statement that she wrote. On Thursday, CDC Director Dr. Redfield spoke about schools and the necessity of in-person instruction. He said that schools are among the safest place for children to be during the coronavirus pandemic. He also said, and I quote, "There is extensive data that confirms K through 12 schools can operate with face-to-face learning, and they can do it safely and they can do it responsibly." He goes on to say we should never be making data-driven decisions when we are talking about institutions. Dr. Redfield said the CDC never recommended closing schools back in the spring, but there was limited data then. However, today there's extensive data showing schools are safe. He said schools are not spreading the virus, but instead being picked up at family gatherings outside of schools. Restaurants, gyms, bars, and stores are all open, and schools should be too. What data and science are you following when it clearly shows schools are safe? I understand why Arizona is ranked at the bottom when it comes to education. It just is not a priority. When I lived in Ohio, we had to fill out an application and get superintendent approval if a child was gone or was going to be gone multiple days in a row. Here, it just doesn't matter. It is sad to me that in Arizona education, it is just a suggestion, and it seems to be okay if our children miss a year of learning. Distant learning is running smoother than in the spring, but I can't say the students are actually learning any more than they did then. What they are learning is how to ask Alexa what the answer is or how to cheat because they are given that opportunity. I also wonder if any board members have taken the time to visit the schools or even talk to teachers and staff about staying open. I have talked to several teachers on 3 different campuses, and all 3 said the teachers that they have talked to would like to continue in person, and it is going well. You were very slow to open the schools and very quick to close. I'm not sure what the point is to close schools 3 days prior to the plan. What happened to needing time to communicate with families so they can have a plan? This board is back to where we were a few years ago when we had to recall members because they weren't doing their job. Maybe this is the next step. I pray you do the right thing for our kids and our families. And I just want to wrap up and say I really hope that you consider our children when making any decisions and what they are going through.
Thank you. Was there anyone else? Did any of the board members have any comments? So I'm not hearing any board members wanted to make any comment.
Kathy's working on her audio right now.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry, we're having orchestrating problems here, so I apologize. Yes, and so what I had said when the online board members could not hear is to thank the parents for coming out and providing the heartwarming passion behind wanting to keep their children in school. I concur that the best place for kids to be is in school. I respect parents who choose other ways. I respect teachers for having to make a hard decision. And tonight, I hope that we can have a honest and candid conversation about where we are and what we may need to do differently for a future maybe board study.
Jamie?
There we go. Sorry, it takes a minute to get the microphone. Just thank you for communicating your concerns.
Suzanne? Yolanda?
I have nothing to say right now.
Okay, thank you. Item 3.1, general business, discussion and consideration to approve a more restrictive or less restrictive delivery model to begin on the Monday after the governing board approval or the board approved criteria for a changed health benchmark threshold has been met. So I think there's been some confusion out in the public, a little bit of misinformation here on this, what I'm seeing on this agenda. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Schuff, of what I'm seeing is us either going out or coming back in sooner than what we previously have, and that was something that previously in the board we had expressed. Is that what this topic is based on, Dr. Schuff?
Are you off? Are you guys off? Thank you. Mr. Aguirre, members of the board, yes, this agenda topic, this particular agenda item is purely for going in and going out. I think the conversation when we first started was it needed a full 7 days. Now that we've been through every single model of from virtual to hybrid to traditional delivery, and then even intermittently having to shut down for quarantine, we do have the ability to shift faster. I personally have a concern predicting that we will go, that our data is going to reach where it's going to get regardless of this meeting, that we will be going virtually. And I also have a concern about our ability to come back as quickly as possible to in-person. So for me, this agenda item allows us to respond as quickly as we can to the data as it comes in, even though our data is still, about 10, 12 days behind. It still allows us to shift as soon as possible. So this would mean instead of finding out on a Thursday, coming and returning on a following Thursday, or making a change to a different delivery model the following Thursday, it simply would change as of the following Monday. This agenda item is not just for this circumstance, it's for going forward, intended to go out forward for the rest of the school year.
Any discussion? Jamie?
Well, I'm not in favor of closing. I have a few reasons why. I want to be careful that I don't bring up other topics that are not on the agenda. But the purpose of closing early, I'm understanding, is to help reduce the rate of COVID. And if I'm understanding it, it's that there's going to be a lot of people traveling during the holiday break. In regards to people traveling during the holiday break, I imagine that if family is coming from out of town, they're probably already here. They probably came in last weekend, or they're going to be coming in through this week. not on Thursday. And I could be wrong, but if we're talking hypothetical situations.
Okay, I'm just going to interrupt. Are we talking about the agenda item or are we talking about closing? Because that's not what I thought the agenda item was. It was about the days that we're changing. So I think that we're not getting into good territory here.
So again, just to be clear, this agenda item is talking on how quickly we either come back after the benchmarks are met or how quickly we go out after the benchmarks are met. Previously, administration said that they needed a week. Now, and we had asked administration, is there any way to do that faster? Administration has come back now and is saying that yes, the turnaround can be faster. That's what this agenda item is all about. Again, I apologize if there was confusion out in the public as to what these agenda items are, but this is what these agenda items are. So go ahead, Jamie. I apologize.
Fine, Suzanne, did you want to say something?
No, then are we talking about closing? Because that's what I'm hearing from Jamie. I know, so I'm just trying to figure out what is up for, we're talking about days transitioning in and out.
Again, this particular topic is about how many days does it take us to either come back once the benchmarks are met and how quickly to go out if once the benchmarks are met to go out. That's what
Right,
this
and
is about.
that's what I'm understanding, but are we going to then comment on something differently?
No, we are going to stick to the agenda item. Go ahead, Jamie.
I would say then, when the benchmark, how do I say this? I want our kids to go back to any type of hybrid learning as long as it takes. I want to keep them in school, in person, as long as we can.
Mr. Aguirre, may I support with some clarification? So the outcome, if this is voted in approval, what that would mean is there's no change to any of the benchmark data that we have in place right now that's been approved by the board. So we are still watching the data for what the board approved, 3 weeks of meeting the health benchmark criteria. It is very likely we will meet it on Thursday. So if there is a yes vote on this item, that would result in on Thursday, on Thanksgiving, if they still publish data on Thanksgiving, or perhaps on the Friday, if they publish the data on the Friday, the following Monday, we would begin the virtual delivery the following Monday, a faster turnaround from whatever the data says. A no vote would result in following the data on whatever is published on Thursday. If it meets the 3 weeks of consecutive data, then it still would trigger a virtual change. And then that would happen the following Thursday, what was previously approved by the governing board. So that is the difference. And, just completely transparently, if you listening to people in the public tonight, one of the comments said, if you voted no, it gives the board opportunity to have further conversation. You would have to have it on the 30th or some other time. That's the only discrepancy. This is not an item saying we should be virtual, we should be hybrid, we should be traditional. It simply is an item that says, when do we make the change based on the data that came in? Does that help?
So what I hear JB saying, and maybe I'm the only one that's understanding this, is he's saying he doesn't want to do the 3-day turnaround to roll out of school. He wants them to have that week to transition home. He's not arguing. I don't think anything else. That's at least the way I took it, is that he clearly understands this is rolling out. So the 3 weeks happen, and he wants the kids, and correct me if I'm wrong, to be in that extra week to give them one more week in person. He's not talking about anything differently. And correct me if I heard incorrectly.
So yes, you are correct. I wanted to explain, and that's why I'm trying to be careful, because I don't want to talk about subjects that are not on the agenda. So with all that being said, I would just say that I would vote no on this topic, and I'll leave it at that. And give me a second to mute myself and turn the other volume back on.
Kathy, your thoughts?
Well, I understand the reasoning behind wanting to roll out sooner, and one that would be a reason to roll in sooner as well, and to give that some good faith that parents don't have to wait a week to get their children back in. But I don't support that we took a week to get into the school, and then now we're saying, no, parents that want in person, you got to do it in 3 days. I believe that we're going to have to change things that we've ruled on. We're going to have to talk about things multiple times. But there's a lot of passion. There's teachers that have shared their concerns about rolling back to online learning. I think people will say, oh, the parents need the babysitter, and that's not true. I don't believe any parent that wants their kid in learning is just a babysitting service. So while I would support a quicker onboarding back to in-person, I can't support a quicker rolling out of in-person.
Suzanne?
If we're going to leave it the same, I think it should be in and out. So I think that we're manipulating it again if we decide to wait longer to go out, but quicker to come back in. And I would just urge everyone to think about those numerous teacher emails that we have gotten. And yes, we heard from some teachers, anonymous comments today, but we have lots of emails that we received with very concerned teachers that are teaching 5-day in person, that have been in and out of quarantine, have gone through school closures now, to come back for literally 2.5 days, Monday, Tuesday, and a half day Wednesday. We're talking about 2.5 days of instruction time to come back to then transition. So from a teacher standpoint, after Thanksgiving, you come back to your classroom again, you are teaching the norms over again, getting back in that routine, those types of things. So that day is usually a lot of getting back to know you. So now we're down to 1.5 days, and most likely, no matter what we decide, whether in or out, they're going, most likely that is turning towards them going out on Thursday. So I'm just not sure if that, again, that extra exposure time after Thanksgiving is worth it, the 2.5 days. I mean, that's what we're basically deciding over, 2.5 days.
Yolanda, your thoughts?
Okay. I hope everybody can hear me. I do support the quick change, mostly because if people want to trust the responsibility that adults have, I don't trust anymore. For somebody who's fighting this virus, for you to say that yes, bars and restaurants are open, but schools are not. That's the problem, is that you adults are not responsible. You take your children out there and then you come back and then you spread it around. And then we are the ones that end up getting it. So no high support, because do you think that after this Thanksgiving it's going to be any better? Because people aren't listening. People are still gathering. People are moving around, and things are getting worse. And believe me, this is no fun. I hate this virus. So I support the 3-day or the shorter turnaround. And that's my saying this.
Thank you, Yolanda. So, excuse me. So just like Yolanda said, is it? I started getting sick on Friday morning, and I went and got tested. And I too am battling it now because I just got my test results back about 10 minutes before the meeting. And that's why I'm not there. And to her point of a quicker turnaround, this is also something that we as a board, we actually asked if there was any way we could do this. Is if we could go out quicker or come back quicker. So now it just so happens that we as a community, and I say we because we're all in this together. There's no reds, there's no blues. There's just people and families. And if we're not going to take responsibility and do the right things as a community, I don't know that that I can support staying out longer. But the biggest thing is it just so happens that the data is clearly taking us out of school, the benchmarks, because we as a community have decided to let our guard down a little bit. And that's why we're kind of, going in this direction. But again, if we're going back the other way of coming back in school and everyone's being responsible and we're doing what they say to do, and we start to see the numbers come down, how much support is there to go ahead and keep kids out of school longer? I'll guarantee you each one of you is going to want to get them kids back in school just like I do. This is not picking and choosing. This is something that we ask the administration to do for us. And we don't know what's going to happen on Thursday. Maybe there's a blimp. Maybe it resets itself. So that's just my thoughts, something for you guys to think about, that this is clearly something we as a board, as the administration, to get with staff and see if this could actually be done. They're able to do it. And now I'm hearing different things that we're wanting. So with that, if anyone has anything else, I'll go ahead and open it up.
So, whoops, hang on. Sorry about that. We were getting feedback. Mr. Aguirre, you did say that the board asked for that, and that is true. But just like everything else, the data has changed. There has been in the community an attempted suicide due to COVID concerns that a classmate tackled and got the gun out of the student's hand during band practice. There is health concerns. There's mental health concerns and a very broken mental health. There are parents that are breaking down. I believe, and I'm sorry, Natasha, I did not catch her last name, commented on the increased domestic violence. And Dr. Redfield has clearly stated the best place for kids is in person. So Ms. McAvoy discussed the several emails from teachers. I think the last count I had was 10 out of, I forget how many teachers we employ. We also got many parent, including an ER nurse, who says she clearly understands the impact of COVID, and she is in favor of in-person learning still because mental health of our children is being ignored. So yes, I'm allowed to change my mind, and I clearly stated I want to roll out longer and roll in faster. Parents have voiced that they want a choice. We are an essential part of society. And quite frankly, what the news doesn't tell you is COVID deaths are down while cases are up. They last shorter period because they do have better way to combat the illness. I don't want to see the healthcare system overloaded, but I don't want to see the mental health care system overloaded. My own child has asked for therapy, and I work for a great company that supports that. 12 phone calls and not one return phone call from mental health providers on the west part of the city. Not one. It took me 6 weeks, and thankfully somebody overheard I was looking for somebody, and I finally got her in. And to get her an appointment, I have to take her out of school during the middle of the day, and I sit and I wait on the east side of town. That's what parents have to do to take care of their children's mental health. I took her out of this district, which I've never, ever believed in supporting a charter school. That charter school has not had one single case. To Mrs. Holmes' points, the mitigation is working. They're taking it serious. Mr. Bogart can attest that they have sent kids home for various reasons, and they have controlled, for the most part, on West Star campus, the exposures. Dr. Redfield has said the exposures are not coming from campuses. So yes, I've changed my mind. And that's what happens in something that's fluid like this. Dr. Fauci, and if I pronounce his name wrong, I struggle with that, and I apologize to him, though he'll never hear this, used to say masks don't protect the individual. They protect the people they're around. Now there's studies that says, no, it protects both. This is going to be fluid. The virus is going to mutate. It's going to change. It's going to find a way to survive. This is here for the long haul. And I know I'm not here for the long haul. And so but I'm going to be passionate. I'm going to give a voice to in-person learning because my daughter's counselor says that's the best thing for her. And I'm her parent, and I've had to make a very hard decision to leave a district that I love, a district that I've been a parent in for over 20 years. So yes, I'm going to change my mind. And I apologize. That seems, I don't know how it came across to you, but yes, I've changed my mind. And yes, I did originally ask for that.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts?
I had a few things to say too. So, Suzanne, I agree with you. We're talking about 3 days, 2.5 days. I think the question is, who's going to make that choice? Who are those 3 days for? And those 3 days are for the students, and the parents are the voice of their students, their kids. And they're telling us that they want their kids to be in for those 3 days. I think that we've seen a pattern with online learning, and we had data that was provided to us in previous board meetings where engagement is lost and the reading levels are low. And so we're approaching a year of dealing with COVID. And from what I've seen, it's just been a roller coaster. We close, we open, we close, we open. And I don't think anybody's really enjoying that. I don't think anybody, so we're going to close again. And this is where I don't want to get off on another topic, but it's just going to be repeating. So for the 2.5 days, if parents are saying, yes, I want that, kids are saying, yes, I want that, I say, give it to them, let them have it. And Yolanda, you're mentioning everything else being open, and you're absolutely right too. Everything is open, and we would be the only organization closing in the entire community. And that's not going to stop the spread of COVID by only us closing. So I do think it's just something that we're gonna have to deal with. And I don't think that that closing is the right choice. And so we're talking about 2.5 days or 3 days of closing, and I just don't think it's the wisest decision. I think that those kids would enjoy coming back and sharing what they did over Thanksgiving break or whatever they would normally do. So I guess I can leave it at that. But that's my thoughts on it. And now it's going to take me a minute to.
Suzanne, your thoughts, if you had any follow-up. Yolanda, do you have any follow-up?
Oh,
I just feel that it's unfortunate that we as a board, again, being put in this situation. We're not government officials. We're volunteers. We genuinely like each other. And when we have meetings like this, that, to Kathy's point, we get passionate. We don't mean to come after one another. Sometimes unfortunately, that's what this whole COVID in and out of school has done, is it's ripping our community apart. I'd actually challenge the community that I live in and the one that I'm proud to be a part of, that we should be taking our frustration and being fed up with this virus, and we should be taking that downtown where it actually belongs. Because to everyone's point that, yeah, these businesses are open, and yet schools are the ones that I feel have to be the responsible ones. Because people need to go to the bar to have a cocktail. Because people need to go sit down at a restaurant rather than getting it to go. They got to go to the gym rather than exercise outside. Now, I apologize that I'm getting off topic here, but there's just kind of some closing thoughts for me. And to think that parents have gotten some of the nastiest emails that anyone's ever said to me. And I know that I signed up for it, and I got to take the bad with the good. But let me tell you, there ain't no good coming. I haven't seen any. I don't know about the rest of you board members. For parents to think that there's members of this board that are thriving to keep children out of school, you think we don't realize how much harm it does to them? Shame on you. Shame on you. With that, if I could I have a motion? And I just want to be clear that a yes vote on this particular agenda item will be to either let us come back into school faster once the benchmarks are met, or to leave faster once those benchmarks are met. And if I could I have a motion?
Excuse me. I make a motion that we approve a more restrictive or less restrictive delivery model to begin on the Monday after governing board approval or the board approved criteria for changed health benchmarks threshold is met. Sorry.
And is there a second?
second.
All those in favor? Jamie,
Nay.
Kathy? Suzanne?
Yes.
Yolanda?
Aye, sorry.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Any nays? Kathy?
Nay.
Jamie?
A nay.
So that item 3.1 approved 3-2. Item 3.2, discussion and consideration to approve a change from traditional delivery to virtual delivery beginning November 30th, 2020, and a change from virtual delivery to a different delivery model no sooner than January 4th, 2021, and when governing board approved health benchmarks are met. Dr. Schuff.
Mr. Aguirre, members of the board, so based on the prior agenda item, right now, what would happen if there was a no vote on this agenda item on Thanksgiving or when the typical Thursday data comes out? Based on that data, if we admit the 3 weeks of consecutive data to be at the substantial level starting Monday, November 30th, we would move automatically to virtual delivery. If there is a no vote, if there's a yes vote, then that would, with the belief that the board believed that the data was headed that direction, or we have current data available to us that tells us we really have essentially met that data already, the board would be voting tonight to inform parents, teachers, families, that we would be able to notify them tomorrow and to make that change. So to be clear, we don't need additional time to be able to make that shift in the same way we felt like we should be able to do it from a Thursday to a Monday. We can. It really just becomes essentially an opportunity for communication if you think it's a foregone conclusion. If you prefer to just wait and see what the data says precisely by that, then a no vote would be in order. So we're looking for the board's direction on providing information to our public as of tonight, and being clear that with the number of weeks remaining, being able to come back in person isn't going to happen until after the winter break.
So Dr. Schuff, I just wanted to be clear so that the board members can all make sure that everyone understands. Is it basically what we're talking about here is that we know that the numbers are going in the wrong direction that we want them to go, and we assume that we're going to meet the benchmark of us going out on Thanksgiving Day, on this Thursday, and that's what this agenda item is about. Do we just go ahead and say, okay, we're trending so bad right now that we know it's going to be in the red, so we'll just go ahead and call it now, or we're going to wait till Thursday and let the data speak for itself and then go out that way? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Kathy, open it up with you.
I'm sure you're not surprised. And while I have a different view of my position, I am an elected official, and the Arizona Constitution believes in local control. And so, yes, we are the people that this community looks towards to lead this district. So I understand I don't get paid, but that doesn't make me a volunteer. So please understand that's how I view this position, and probably why my health has taken a toll in the last 3 years because of that. The problem is that you're right, Mr. Aguirre, this has not brought out the good in many people. And I am probably just as much to blame because I do get passionate about my opinion. But my opinion is based on fact. I have experienced a suicide. I've experienced my daughter telling me cutting her clothes was better than cutting herself. And that happened this year when we went to online distance learning. She was not engaged. I am about keeping these kids in school because parents have a choice. Suicides have gone from 39 last year for teens 17 and under to 43. That was by Arizona Department of Health Services Director, Dr. Christ, also an OBGYN, who's making decisions on a virus. I respect her, but there is more data out there. So when we go around and ask for things, I do have a suggestion later. I'm trying not to bleed over into that. But the fact that I got phone calls that kids have already told by their teachers they're not to take all of their stuff home. They had backpacks full of school supplies today, kids in tears, already expecting to go out. I think the decision's already been made regardless of what I think or how I vote in some people's mind. But I would rather see what's going to happen. And, you know, it's a virus that's mutating. It's flu season. It's cold season. My allergies are killing me. So we're going to see an increase. So I don't expect anything different. And I just say, let's wait. I think parents know it's coming by the number of emails we've received and the parents that have come out here and voiced their opinion. So I think you can figure out that I do not support this change.
Jamie?
Similarly, I don't think I can support this. My concerns are what if the health benchmarks are not met? And with that, I just have issues with the benchmarks. You know, the green, I don't think we're ever going to meet that. And so I don't know if, you know, and I'm trying to be careful. I don't support it because I just worry about how long the kids are going to be in virtual learning. The benchmarks are a guide, and I really feel for those of you who are feeling sick. It is spreading. There's no doubt about that. It's happening in my family. I speculate that myself and my wife had it back in January. We met all the symptoms, and if it wasn't COVID, it was something really similar, and it felt debilitating, and it lasted for 2 weeks. It was awful. But just like anything else, when we get sick, we get back in it. We take risks, and I think that our teachers are essential workers. And so without getting too far off topic, those are just my thoughts on this agenda item. And I don't see myself supporting it.
Suzanne, your thoughts?
You know, I have a little bit of a hard time supporting this because we did, not myself, but us as a board did vote in these benchmarks. And I do feel like we should see how the data plays out and if the benchmarks are met or not, and see what within the categories it falls. And I'm seeing through the board's plan, but unfortunately, I think the next thing that we will hear is that we are going to change our benchmarks and we are going to change our plan. So that has me concerned a little bit because, we give the teachers this plan. These are the benchmarks. These are what we are putting in place. We are part of the community, and whether restaurants and gyms and bowling alleys and trampoline parks aren't playing their part, I would hope that we do play our part. I think that education obviously should take the priority to those things. I'm sure that, but I am not, because I think that our kids could come first, but I know we can argue both sides of that for sure. So I am struggling with this a little bit. I'm listening to everybody because we did have a plan and we did have a benchmarks, and I'm not sure that I want to change it up right now in the middle. I also want to make one thing clear. COVID and teen suicide and self-harm are both health crises in Arizona. Arizona has a higher percentage than our nation's average for teen suicide. Before COVID came along, our teen suicide rate has raised 25% in the last 3 years. If you work in a school, you know that self-harm and suicide are a crisis in Arizona, and they both deserve attention. It should not be one or the other. They both deserve attention, and they are both crises for our children in Arizona.
Yolanda, your thoughts?
I already said what I needed to say, and I'm tired of all this.
So my thoughts are that we spent a lot of time coming up with our benchmarks. We gave it a lot of thought. We argued with each other back and forth, got angry with one another. The community was mad at us. Teachers were mad at us. We're the only district that I'm aware of in the West Valley, Southwest Valley, that came up with data sets like this and followed it. And we were actually able to go back in person. I don't believe that Buckeye Elementary ever went in person. It's my understanding also that Buckeye Union actually just went back out. But yeah, I'm not in favor of changing the benchmarks. That the data will come in the way that the data comes in. And if it says we go out, then we go out. If it says we stay in, then we stay in. I think it's important to stick with what we've done. I think if the Department of Health wants to change the numbers within those benchmarks, that's on them. But so just my thoughts. Did anyone have anything else? Okay, with that, if I could I have a motion for item 3.2?
You got me. Okay. I make a motion to approve the change from traditional delivery to virtual delivery beginning November 30th, 2020, and a change from virtual delivery to a different delivery model no sooner than January 4th, and when the governing board approved health benchmarks are met.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Jamie?
Nay.
Kathy? Suzanne? Yolanda? All those opposed? Jamie?
Nay.
Kathy? Suzanne?
Nay.
Yolanda?
Nay.
I am also a nay. Let the record show that it was a no vote for Miss McNamara, or I didn't hear.
I didn't hear you call on me. If anybody else did, I apologize. But I am a nay.
Okay, so to be transparent, Miss Lapita, I can't see you. Would you like me to recall for that vote, please?
No, Mr. Aguirre, I got everyone's vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lapita. And with that, that ends the under general business. Item 4.1, adjournment of the meeting. If I could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Yolanda?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Kathy? Kathy?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Let the record show that the meeting adjourned at 7:41. And if I could, I wish all you guys a very happy Thanksgiving, and please be safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter Brady.